everybody, please welcome my guest tonight, Michael Ross. Good evening, Michael.
Hello, Michael. Very pleasant to be with you. Can you hear me okay?
I'm getting a bit of an echo. I don't know if maybe, do you, by chance, well, maybe you don't have the show on behind you because I'm not hearing myself. But, yeah, I'm getting a little bit of an echo. So I don't...
We've got a hell of a schedule coming up on WOIC, so don't miss it. And I made it easy for you on the website, www.
Okay, yeah. See, I heard the show in the background. I think we're all right now, though. So
hey.
Yeah, much better.
That's WOIC logo. You could just click that logo.
Okay. See, I'm getting the show in the background. Do you have it on by chance?
Probably.
Perhaps I do. I'm not sure how to
my
get rid of it.
shot on that page, and you'll click on that, and that'll take you to listen live. There's also a link on the WIC website.
Okay, then what you might have to do is possibly close out the show if you have it up on your computers. Maybe either.
So and we'll keep you updated more and more on it as we get closer to that opening day. I'm excited. I'm looking so forward to it. It ought to be quite fun. But really,
I'll try and cut it out, Michael.
Okay. Well, Michael, you might want to you either hit the pause on the player itself, or you can actually close that right out, and it'll be in the archive, so you'll be able to.
I'm Kennedy, and we're going to talk about some of the things that are happening now.
Okay, so you with us? Michael Ross, are you with us? Okay, hold on, everybody.
We cover just one thing. We don't cover just a couple things.
Well, I hung up, Michael.
No, folks, we really do.
Okay, yeah, I can still hear it. You're gonna have to either pause it or close out the Blog Talk Radio.
Here I am. Yes, folks, we've made some friends along the way in high places, but we've also made a few enemies. And for them, all I can say is keep listening.
Oh.
Yeah, Bill Dean from Maryland is on Late Night in the Midlands. Hello, and welcome back to Late Night in the Midlands, Bill.
Hi, Brother Michael. Thank you for having me back. Great to be on with you to share a couple minutes with you here.
Michael, are you? Do you need assistance on?
Yes, I do. I'm not computer literate, Michael. I'm afraid I don't know what I'm doing.
Show, and I think you've done
Okay, well, if you're up on the show on the Blog Talk Radio page, what you'll want to do is look for the player there, and you might want to pause that or actually close out the Blog Talk Radio end of things and just go with the Skype for right now.
Needs to be done. It's popular now, but I think it's going to be more popular as time goes by.
There could even be a volume switch on that Blog Talk player that you can actually throw all the way down. So either or.
The show tonight.
Late night in the midnight. We cover everything. Late Night in the Midlands is kicking off the new year on WOIC 12:30 a.m. That's right, it's a go, my friends. On January 3rd, 2011, we will broadcast for the first time live on WOIC 12:30 a.m. to kick off 2011 and the new home of...
Are you there, Michael?
Yes, sir, I am.
That's it now, I think.
Okay. Sounds like you figured it out.
Sorry about that. I'm not very computer literate. But
oh, that's quite all right. That's quite all right. It gave me a few moments to get better prepared here, so that's okay. It happened. So the show will be in the archive, so if you want to go back and listen to it or even download it, you're more than able to do that. So thank you for being a guest here tonight on Late Night in the Midlands. I do appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure to be speaking to an American radio host. I'm very fond of America and your freedom to discuss all these intricate things like astral projection, out-of-body experiences. Great stuff.
Yeah, at least for now we're free to discuss this stuff. I sometimes wonder the way things are going.
I understand your point there.
Yeah. So why don't we start out and talk a little bit about the book? What got you interested in the astral projections and really turned you into writing this book?
Well, when I was 17, I had my first astral projection, and it was thanks to reading Sylvan Muldoon's classic, The Projection of the Astral Body. And I was very open-minded as to whether there was such a thing as out-of-the-body experiences. And I woke up one morning and finding myself shooting out of my body, looking down in my sleeping form in the bed. And I panicked. I think this is quite a common feature of people's first experience of an astral projection. And I said, get back, and I shot back into my body. But it was an ecstatic experience in all senses of the word. And I began to investigate the phenomenon, read as much as I could about it, tried to train myself to achieve more astral projections, and that's the reason that I eventually, 30, 40 years later, wrote a book about it.
Nice. So, okay, so let's get into this a little bit. And, I got some questions about astral projection. Now, myself, I guess my first question is, now, when we talk about astral projection, we're also talking about out-of-body experiences. Now, somebody had once told me they're not exactly the same, so I'll ask you, they're pretty similar, aren't they?
Well, Sylvan Muldoon, for example, that great pioneer of astral projection, he had out-of-body experiences only within the physical plane or the physical world. He never had an experience where he entered the astral plane. I suppose he was more of an out-of-body exponent in the physical world, whereas most people tend to experience visits to the astral plane as well. And fortunate people like myself have experienced both types of projection. So I think that would be the indication as to the difference between them. You're entering, they use the term astral projection, you're entering the astral plane. If you use out-of-body experience, it generally means you're having an out-of-body in the physical world.
Okay, see, now I've had a few in my life, and not one of them was controlled. It just happened.
Yeah.
So, and I've always wondered, some people are able to make this happen. And I guess we'll get into it as we go along, as if somebody wanted to do that, how they would go about doing it.
Well, when I had my first projection, I was delighted. I thought, well, that proves to me at least that there is such a thing as an entity, as a soul in the physical body. And I thought, now how do I prove this to other people who haven't had the experience? So I thought I would write to the Institute of Psychophysical Research in Oxford, headed the Celia Green that you mentioned earlier on. Suggested that she set up a 5-digit target, and I would try to travel by the astral body down to Oxford and read the figure, the 5-digit figure. I think I must have read an article by Charles Tarp, who's a very famous parapsychologist in America, very nice individual. He's written a lot of books about the paranormal. And I think he was the first one to do that sort of experiment of a 5-digit number. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the Oxford group of people set up a target, and I would try to travel down there and pick up a target number and prove that there was such a thing as a soul. Unfortunately, over 2 years, I didn't achieve it once. And like yourself, most of the occasions of astral projection or out-of-body experience were spontaneous. I tried to train myself to, before sleep, meditation, all sorts of energy work and various techniques I picked up in various books. But unfortunately, I never proven it. And I tend to, I know that as far as I'm concerned, there is such a thing as a soul and astral body. the thing that puzzles me is there's been absolutely no proof whatsoever ever provided. I'm surprised Sylvan Muldoon and Hereward Carrington, who was a parapsychologist investigating Sylvan Muldoon's out-of-body experiences, I'm surprised they didn't set up a target to try to achieve. Robert Monroe, who's America's probably most famous projector, he did a similar test start. But again, no matter how proficient he was, he couldn't achieve the target number at the university that he attempted it. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no psychical event has ever been proven satisfactorily to science, which is a big puzzle to me as to why it's so difficult to achieve that aim in the end.
You know, I really think that it's an individual thing. I think, you know, a lot of people go on not believing in this stuff and thinking it's not possible until it happens to them. And I've been fortunate enough to experience a lot of the stuff I talk about. So, you know, I'm a big believer in it. I know that there's a soul. I know that, you know, when we die, that's not it. There's more to it.
Yeah. Well, I share your point of view as regards that. I'm still puzzled as to why it's so difficult to get a physical target in the physical world to prove that, in fact, the soul has left the body and perceived a target. It's a mystery to me as to why it should be so difficult to prove. I don't see why we who have experienced that phenomenon cannot do it.
Oh, okay. Now, there's been psychic research on this phenomenon, correct? I mean, did they ever get anywhere with this type of research?
No, anybody has ever tried to produce an out-of-body experience and proven it has failed, sadly, miserably. In fact, Robert Monroe, who I have great admiration for, the late Robert Monroe, when he was doing the experiment with Charles Dart, I think it was in a hospital area or somewhere like that, and he did project in one of the evenings that he was trying this experiment, but he couldn't go to the target for some reason, the target number of 5 digits, but he perceived a nurse talking to her husband round a corner, which he wouldn't have perceived from the bed that he was lying on. And in fact, that was true. He did have a semi sort of proof, but it wasn't the proof it was expected, e.g. the 5-digit number.
Okay. Now, I know that access to astral plane was once a well-guarded secret in ancient Egyptian culture. It was made available only to the powerful elite through elaborate rituals. So they were aware of this type of thing being a reality, and they tried to keep it out of the wrong hands.
Yes. I wonder why, though.
Yeah.
Out of the wrong hands, as you put it. I mean, I can understand why they keep it a secret. I mean, I didn't publicize this or anything. I didn't really broadcast the fact. In fact, when I wrote the book, a lot of people that I knew were very surprised that I had this experience. I think, in a sense, if you start blathering or talking too much about a phenomenon like this, you tend to lose the ability to experience it for some, again, an unknown reason. I think if you keep it private and don't mention it, it sort of creates a tension within you. It'll help produce the phenomenon.
You know, what's weird with mine is when I had 2 of them were as a child, and I remember getting up out of bed, and it seemed like I was floating, and I looked back, and I could see myself laying there, and then it was almost like being a ghost. I mean, I couldn't leave the room. I don't know if it was because I was a child, and maybe there's some kind of boundaries when you're that little, but, you know, and I remember my parents' room was in the next room over. And if I made noise, my dad was quick to come in there. Well, I made all the noise I could trying to get someone's attention, and nobody budged. I even tried waking my brother up, who was in the same room. And I mean, I got a nudge out of him, but he didn't wake up to talk to me, and it was just really strange. And I don't.
How old were you at this time?
Oh, I had to be about 10 years old when this happened.
That's very good if you remember that. I mean, as I say, I have no recollection of any out-of-body experience before the age of 17. I think it's pretty good that you had experiences and remember it. Incidentally, that brings up another point. I mean, I foolishly didn't start keeping a record of my astral projections until about 10, 12 years ago, and I filled about 5 huge diaries of experiences of astral projection. And I think this is another thing that people should maybe attempt to do, keep a dream diary or an astral projection diary, and that helps produce the phenomenon as time goes on. It requires a great deal of discipline and perseverance to experience the phenomenon, and I think that's the only way. Keeping a physical record in a diary helps the experience occur, I think.
It does, and it helps you recall the incident. You know, like if I have a dream that has any bearing to it, that I feel has any bearing to it, when I wake up, I don't care how tired I am, I write it down. Because I like to keep notes of this stuff and, you know, do my own kind of, I guess, experiment. You know, sometimes you get these dreams and, you know, days later something similar will happen and, you know, it all makes sense. And my third out of body was actually something that I'll never forget. I actually, in this particular one, I was an adult. This was back in 2004. And I actually spent some time with my mother, who had passed away in 2001. And the only reason I know that I didn't imagine this and that it wasn't a dream and that it was an out-of-body experience is because everything she told me came true in the following couple weeks. So,
excellent.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had something similar, correct, with your son?
Yes, I did. And he died tragically.
I'm sorry.
And about 12 years ago. And naturally, one was extremely distressed at that incident sort of happening. But a few days after, I had a lucid dream, which is a dream where you're aware you're dreaming. It wasn't quite an astral projection, fully blown astral projection, where I met him, and he looked pretty hollow, empty, shocked. There are a couple of experiences of that. But then one night I found myself traveling a particularly beautiful tunnel configuration, and it was a sort of intricate pattern of red and gold colors, brilliant colors, and it was an ecstatic feeling traveling in this tunnel. And I've never had the experience prior to that of guides. I tended to be a bit skeptical about people who keep talking about guides.
Mm-hmm.
And I perceived sort of a fair-haired, black-cloaked entity following me at great speed. And I immediately decided I would go to Bury. And I shot off at a different direction. I had no idea where I was going. And I eventually found myself in a room with children who had different nationalities.
Mm-hmm.
I was very disappointed I didn't see my son. And I said, "Where's Murray?" And the children giggled and laughed and pointed to a corner of the room, and he appeared from behind a bit of furniture, very shamefaced. And I was emotionally overcome. I said, "Oh, Murray." Murray was his name, obviously. And I found myself shooting back into my body. And I woke up and told my wife about it, tears in my eyes. I don't mind everything. But that is another lesson to try and control your emotions in the astral plane, because it'll bring one of these experiences rapidly to a stop if you don't control your emotional reaction to your experiences on the astral plane. But it was a super experience. I understood that the word ecstatic means to be out of yourself, and it was certainly an ecstatic, wonderful experience, no matter how short it was with my meeting. I think you obviously had a bit more control with the situation you described with your mother.
Yeah, it seemed like it, because, I was never scared. I wasn't, if somebody you love died and all of a sudden they walked back in the room and said, "Hey, I'm here," you'd probably be overwhelmed with joy, and I didn't have all that. It seemed normal. And she took me with her, and we went to the house that I grew up in. She pretty much showed me what she wanted to tell me. She didn't come right out and speak to me. I mean, she was showing me things, and I was able to understand what she was trying to tell me. And it was just amazing, and everything that she said did come true. And some people hear this and say, well, I know for a fact it was true. And it, just like you, when I came to, when I snapped back into my body, I was also in tears. It was just a very, very overwhelming and spiritual experience, and one that I will never forget, that's for sure.
That's brilliant. And did your mother look a bit younger? That seems to be a standard experience.
Yes. Oh, here's something else. Now, there's another. Yeah, she looked like she was about 30 years old. Now, when she passed away, she was 65. Now, here's the funny thing. About, maybe a year later, I'm at my sister's house. And, I haven't been over in a while because I was living in Pennsylvania, and they live in New York, which a little bit of a distance there from home to home. But anyways, went to a family outing, and I'm going through my sister's scrapbook, something I've never done before. And don't you know, I flipped to a picture of my mother, and she looked identical to that picture. Same clothes, same look, same everything from the night that I was with her. And I had never seen that picture before in my life. It was almost like her saying, yes, it was real. And,
tremendous experience.
It really was, and that's why, for people who say, "Oh, there's nothing when you die, you just get buried and that's it," I feel bad for those people, because it's not true. We are energy, and when this physical body is no longer functioning, we go on. Where, I don't know. I know she did tell me that there was a God, and again, that could be anything. We were talking about this in the first couple hours, that maybe the Creator is the universe. Maybe that's why we can't see God, because maybe He is the universe. Who knows?
It's just an experience that changes your life. I mean, even though I was 17, I was determined to study this phenomenon for the rest of my life, and so on and so forth. I think, as I say, the problem is how to reconcile the scientist's desire to have absolute proof and certainty of an experience like this. In any psychic event, not only out-of-body experiences. I mean, I tend to sympathize with skeptics like James Randi, who quite correctly points out that he's producing $1 million to someone who can produce evidence for psychic talent. So far, no takers, or those that have tried, have failed miserably. And I really don't. I really fasting is the part that should be.
Okay.
Sorry, on you go, Michael.
Oh, no. You can go ahead. I was just going to say, we're going to take a call in a minute if you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. Let's do that. We have a conspiracy theorist calling in from Kansas. You're on Late Night in the Midlands, my friend.
Hey, Michael Vera again, man. You know, every time I come in here, it's just another phenomenal show. It's becoming my my habit. I do my stuff and then immediately trot over this way, and this guest here is no different.
Well, thank you. Okay.
I really have just one question in mind, and would be interested in hearing the answer to it. As far as these out-of-body experiences go, what are the real world dangers involved with leaving your body in this astral form?
Well, as far as I know, I don't think there's any particular danger. I think when one experiences it the first time, as we indicated, it supposed to have a sense of fear. But then I think some people are scared to don't get back to their body.
That's what I was thinking. Is there any possibility of that happening?
I don't think so at all. Anything I've read about or discussed with other people, there's never that problem. The soul shoots back into the body, no problem.
Okay. So now, like the one I had as a child, that's what I was thinking. Maybe as a child, if you get too far away from your body, maybe there is that risk of not getting back to it. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's a time limit as to how long you could be gone. But I think that's pretty much what you were talking about, right? Or just...
apparently there's a guy called Douglas Baker. He maintains there's also a spatial element to how far you can go out of your body. He estimates 250,000 miles. I can't remember exactly the reason why he gives that particular distance, but apparently that's if you're having an astral projection or out-of-body experience, you won't travel more than 250,000 miles out of the solar system area. I think it's a moon, distance to the moon, or something like that. There's all sorts of theories as to how far away from each other.
Wow. Well, it'd be one way to travel. I wish I could control that kind of thing.
It's just a thing, Michael, getting control of it. And I think this is why I used to wonder why yoga and other disciplines tried to emphasize you control your emotional state. Well, I've discussed that one. And I think it also to utilize energy in the body to instigate the projections as well. That takes a lot of effort and talent and skill over many years to achieve. I mean, I've seen some wonderful things in spiritualist churches and so on. But again, I've seen a lot of tripe and rubbish as well. And it's a mixture.
Okay. Was there anything else, CT, or?
No, that's the answer I was looking for. I appreciate it. Again, great show. I'll be sticking around and listening because
all right.
I like it here. I live here. I'm like the little troll under the bed that children worry about.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate you being with us.
Fantastic.
All right. Okay, so that's one of the things that I wanted to touch on was a lot of people ask, is there anything that they should fear about leaving their body? And I guess there is always that possibility that you might not get back to it, but and I wonder, I guess now that I'm going on here I go jumping around like a ball again, but is it like death? An out-of-body experience, I often wondered if that was what death would be like. Do you come back to your body or don't you? Who decides that? I'm
sure it's very much similar to death. When the great thing is that they say that philosophers, that's their main aim, studying death and so on, and how to achieve sort of calmness when one is entering the dying state. I mean, obviously, people like yourself and myself and the millions of people who have had the experience don't fear death. They still fear dying, probably. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. I think it makes you cease fearing the actual death of the body. You're totally convinced that you're going to exist after the death, having had an out-of-body experience. And the only thing to fear is the actual process of dying. the pain, the suffering, the feeling that you're leaving loved ones, and so on.
And yeah, that's the part that I would fear, I guess, the most is I don't want to go out with a miserable, painful, long, treacherous death. I'd like it to be pretty sudden. Unfortunately, we don't get to make that choice. Now, while I say I'm not afraid of death, I don't want to die tomorrow or anything. I've got a lot of plans. I'd like to, stick around for a little while at least.
Yeah, I share your wish in that. Even though one has wonderful spiritual experiences of any description, I think one still has to live this life in the physical plane to the best of one's ability and appreciate the beauty of natural life and living, basically.
Yeah, I do too. I just wish that the powers that thought the same way as we do, because some of the things that are going on in this world right now, it's just not good. But I guess we won't get into that too much, because I can go on forever about that stuff. CT gets me going. Just seeing him in the chat room gets me going on that stuff. But now, with these out-of-body experiences, do we know how this is possible? I mean, do people need to meditate? Can it be done through meditation?
Yes, I'm convinced it did. Before I had the experience, I was quite interested in yoga, and with the sort of passionate extremism of a teenager, I used to do all sorts of hatha yoga exercises and standing on my head and watching my diet. I read somewhere that you could aid your spiritual development by taking a raw egg, cooked up in milk, this sort of thing. And I did all that sort of thing when I was 15, 16. It was in the 1960s where everything was, at a wonderful era when there was hope and love in the air, as it were. And there was a very positive buzz going on in the 60s. I don't know if you remember that, Michael. But all that sort of thing helped instigate, I think, psychic phenomena in all sorts of areas. And I think it certainly affected me to a positive extent, where I had my first experience. Incidentally, Robert Monroe was told that, I think it was Robert Monroe, that there's not a projection takes place without a guide. Now, as I say, apart from that one experience, I've never experienced any guides or so on. But some people say that there's guides at present at every projection. I don't know. Interesting thought.
Now, we're going to take another call in a minute, but first, what about energy work? Now, all of these mystical practices that some of the well-known astral projection books say that we must do for success. Now, have you ever looked into any of that? I mean, how true is that?
I'm a lazy person by temperament, and I thought of doing energy work nowadays is a bit of a bother. But I'm a member of the International Academy of Consciousness people, and they are very heavily into energy work. And it's a very simple process where you raise the energy, lower the energy through your body for a while, and then you project energy and you absorb the energy. And it sounds daft, all these things, but they actually work. And I found it, I've had various projections and psychic experiences very readily after doing this simple sort of form of energy work that they instigate and train you in. And I find it very, very helpful to increase the ability to project. I notice when I do make the effort, which isn't all that often, I find that I either have an outer body experience or a lucid dream or a false awakening or all the various different types of phenomena that pertain to astral projection, purely because I've done energy work before sleep, just for 10 minutes, quarter an hour, sometimes I've tried it for longer, and it without fail, it leads to a result.
Yeah,
So,
it does seem like the best time for something like that is when you're just about to fall asleep. It really does. It seems like that's when, for me, it seems like that's when it's happened.
yeah, and I don't know if you've had this experience called the false awakening, where you're waking up and you get out of bed and you go to the bathroom and come back to your bed, and you maybe switch on the bedside radio, and you find your hands going through the radio. And it's called a false awakening because you think your physical body has gotten up and done various things, but the actual fact it's the astral body that's gone through the motions. And that's quite an interesting phenomenon that occurs as well.
You know, I've had similar experiences like that, and I'm not even being funny, but there's been a couple times in my life where I literally thought I knew I had to, go to the bathroom in the morning, and I actually thought I got up and was in the bathroom. I mean, it felt real as I do right now. And luckily, I would come alert before I decided to use the toilet. But so yeah, that's happened.
There's another thing. It's quite interesting. You remember Lobsang Rampa? Lobsang Rampa. He was a great professional writer in the 60s.
Okay.
He maintained he was a Tibetan monk. Turned out he was a fraud. He was a English plumber called Cyril Hoskins, and but he wrote about 13 books about astral projection and living in Tibet. My point being that a lot of his stuff actually did work with some people. They could project after reading his books. So even you get inauthentic people who write under false premises books about psychic development. But they actually do work despite them being fakes.
Okay.
Well.
All right, well, let's run back to the phone lines here, and we're going to take Bruce from Rochester, New York. You're on Late Night in the Midlands.
Hi, Mike, gentlemen. This is Bruce, Donna's husband.
Mm-hmm. How are you?
And I'm fine. Yourself?
Oh, doing great.
I just wanted to make a quick comment regarding some out-of-body experiences that my wife has confided in me over the years, going all the way back to her childhood. I've never had anything like this, but on certain occasions when she has had these so-called out-of-body experiences, during the middle of the night, I would feel this tremendous that would drop down onto the bed, and I swear it was like somebody coming from 6 foot above the bed and being dropped beside me. I mean, It was that prominent. Now, we also later had a water bed, and that impact would hit the bed so fast on my wife's side that it would almost propel me out of the water bed. And I would be startled. I would jump up and I'd say, "What in God's name happened?" And she'd say, "I don't know. I don't remember." But she did remember many of them from her childhood, where she would be floating over the trees, looking down on houses in her neighborhood, and kind of like flying in and out of an upstairs bedroom window. Now, I have had nothing that compares with that, so I cannot comment on anything except somebody dropping onto the bed from about 4 to 6 foot above the mattress. And it really is a startling situation. And that's all I can tell you, Mike.
Well,
all I can tell you.
That's fascinating, and I believe our guest wanted to comment on that. Go ahead, Michael.
It's very interesting, Bruce. By the way, I've been in Rochester, New York State, a lovely, lovely area. I thought originally when you started describing your experience, I thought it could have been interpreted as your astral body returning to your physical body, which if it's done quickly, can lead to sort of very large sensation of, like you describe, as though it was slamming back into the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's just like it was slamming down in, and it would just freak me out because I didn't understand this stuff, and this was quite a few years back when we were much younger individuals, and it made no sense to me. But would you accept that probably could be maybe an explanation for it? It's your astral body returning, slamming back into your physical body. Would that tie in with your description of the event? Yes, however, because I know nothing of the situation, yes, I do accept that, because that's exactly what I sort of surmised, was that she was slamming back into her sleeping body, which was right beside me.
Well, often, for example, Bruce, my wife wakens up and hears me making strange noises, for example. And when she has that experience, she often wakens up and she asks me what's happening. And usually I've had some sort of lucid dream or psychic experience or astral projection at the same time, but the physical body is reacting in a strange manner.
Yes, it may not affect everyone the same way, but this seems to be the way that it has affected my wife.
That's very interesting.
Well, with me too, I kind of zipped back into my body really quick, really sudden. It almost felt like an impact. I mean, I woke up instantly, and very emotional experience, if I may say so.
Well, from my viewpoint, it was very scary. No, I mean, and that happened more than once. I mean, this was not just a single occasion. It was a number of occasions. And at the culmination of this impact onto the bed, my wife would sit up very rapidly and look around and then lay back down and go to sleep. It was as if she was saying, "Oh, I'm back. Now it's time to go back to sleep." I don't know. I don't understand these things as well as perhaps your guest speaker does. I'm just relaying what has occurred in my household.
That's very interesting, Bruce. And does your wife have an interest in psychic experiences and out-of-body experiences? Does she pursue that as an interest?
She has had an intense interest for most of her life, from childhood on up. So, yes, she does.
Very good.
So that's the only thing I can tell you, gentlemen. And I'll let you people ponder on that, and I'll hang up the phone and listen to the rest of the program.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your call, Bruce. I appreciate it, and I'm glad you're doing well.
Okay, Mike. You too.
All right. Bye-bye now.
That's very interesting experience that Bruce described. I mean, people have, once one enters the astral plane, as it were, unconsciously or consciously, it has all sorts of marvelous, interesting, unusual, terrifying, wonderful experiences. For example, some people often wake up in the astral body to find that an old woman is sitting on their chest. They have a feeling of tightness and oppression in their chest.
Old hag syndrome.
The old hag. Well, thank you, Michael. I'd forgotten that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trouble when one enters the. I must say, there's another thing that Robert Monroe mentioned. There was a sort of wonderful feeling when you enter the astral plane. Usually, I would describe it as an exquisite eeriness. It's totally different from any feeling you'd experience in the physical world.
Oh, absolutely.
And he spoke about it as going home. And I can understand what he means. There's just this exquisite, lovely sensation, but it's a sort of eerie feeling as well, almost tangibly, sort of a slight element of fear maybe, but it's exquisite. Entering the astral plane is an exquisite experience.
It is. It's got to be one. I was at ease. I mean, I was very comfortable with it. It didn't seem out of the ordinary for me at the time. Of course, once I got back in my body and realized what happened, it was just great. It confirmed for me that we're more than just a physical body. It confirmed to me that there is a soul, a spirit, call it what you will, but there's some energy that's running this machine we call the body.
There's another experience that people have. It's often I've had it many, many times, where one meets a colleague, a friend in the astral plane, as it were, during sleep. And I have often said to them, now, you're out of your body, and try and remember what we've talked about when you wake up. And but I've very rarely had them experiencing the same thing as I had, or they have not had a memory of meeting me in the out of body state on the astral plane. I don't know if you've had that experience, Michael, where you, for example, I've met somebody, a colleague I haven't seen for a long time, and she or he might tell me something that's happening in their life, maybe they fell ill or something, and I found out when I woke up and heard from them that in fact they were ill, and so on. I don't know if you've had that experience of meeting colleagues in the dream state or astral plane.
I have my dreams, I've had some pretty strange ones. I've had some that have actually warned me about things, and at that moment they don't make sense to me, but I write them down, as I said, and it might be months later it makes sense, like, wow, this is what it was talking about. So I have had that. I've had dreams where I've had conversations with people, and then later on, maybe weeks down the road, it would be, I'd stop and say, wow, didn't we already have this conversation? So I've had that type of thing happen to me, for sure.
Excellent.
So now, something else that I wonder, now we've talked about whether it's dangerous to leave the body, if there's any danger to leaving the body, but one person brought to my attention earlier today is, what about the risk of another entity taking over somebody's body?
Well, I've heard of this, but I certainly have never experienced anything like that, and I certainly have no fear whatsoever as that could occur. Maybe it could, but I've never experienced any sort of experience like that, no.
Okay. Now, would this be along the same lines of remote viewing? I mean, we know that military, especially, I don't know about every military, I'm sure they've all done it around the world, but the United States military, as much as they don't like to talk about it, they experimented with remote viewing, and so have many others. So I'm wondering, is this along the same lines? I mean, it's really leaving your body, isn't it, to see what's going on somewhere else?
Well, some people say that that's a further development of astral projection. Instead of experiencing oneself going out of the body, it's one's mental body, not astral body. That it's a sort of progression. Some people would describe it as a sort of a more spiritually progressive thing, where you're mentally traveling, but you're not sort of traveling with astral body. Incidentally, there was a very good speaker, Joe I can't remember his surname, McMonigal. He was in the armed forces in the USA, and he was involved with Robert Monroe, and he's written a few books about remote viewing. I think he was trained, and he's an excellent speaker. He gave a talk when I attended the Robert Monroe Institute a few years ago in Charlottesville, and he gave very interesting descriptions of his work with the government when he was in the forces. But strangely enough, he wrote a book, I can't remember the title offhand, where he was describing events that were going to happen in the future, judging by his psychic powers and skills. Sad to say, not many of them came true. So there you go. You see, this is the trouble. The proof just doesn't seem to hit the ground very well.
Now, are you familiar with quantum jumping? One of our friends in the chat room is bringing up quantum jumping, and wondering whether you can jump into a parallel reality, and what are the similarities there?
I'm not aware. I have a very rudimentary grasp of what you're mentioning there, Michael, but I don't have the technical ability to comment on it.
Okay, fair enough. Well, listen, I want to take a break here quick, so if
Techniques,
thank you. For reaching the vibration stage, I apologize.
Well, prior to sleep is always the best time, usually, because one is using the sleep state and dreams, etc., to develop the astral projection technique. Anyway, you can do this sitting up before you go to bed or lying flat in your bed, as it were. And I would lie in a position that's comfortable for you. Some people can lie in their back okay, others can lie on their sides, whatever. And imagine that the energy is coming from your feet up to the top of your head and going back down to your feet. Just imagine it flowing steadily. Do that for as long as you're capable. And imagine the energy ballooning out into your bedroom, ballooning out from your body, pulsing out from your body and pulsing back into your body, out and in, and visualize this as happening. And I find that I've had very many projections by repeating like a mantra, I will remain conscious, I will remain conscious, I will remain conscious. And as you gradually relax into sleep, you'll find that this will prompt an out-of-body experience. It's certainly in my case. Just a simple mantra describing I will remain conscious. So as you fall into sleep, you're more than likely to waken within the astral body and have a conscious experience of an out-of-body phenomenon.
Now, what do you suppose the real trigger to leave the body is? I mean, where is it located? Is it the mind that controls us?
I think it is, Michael. But I thought maybe you were going to be asking where's the point of exit. Well, sometimes it's from the head. Some people eject from the stomach area first. Some people even eject from the feet. I think Sylvan Muldoon described one very strange experience when he projected from his feet area first. But he had a natural ability. Interesting enough, some people estimate that 1 in 10 people have out-of-body experience at least once in their lives. So that's quite a phenomenal number.
It is.
And Robert Monroe, in one of his books, I can't remember the title, I think it was his second or third book, he said that somebody in the astral world or somewhere had told him that there's about 6,000 people in the Earth plane have the ability to project consciously. The rest of us are just footering about, not managing it totally consciously. So that's not a lot either. So there you go. But back onto the technique, I find that energy thing where you're imagining the energy flowing from your feet to your top of your head, back and forward, and then pulsating the energy out into your bedroom area. For some reason that helps. I've done many experiments with the Institute, International Academy of Consciousness. They do a lot of practical energy work, and I've seen some amazing things. And as I say, I'm a lazy person, and I don't really employ very much energy doing energy work. I think most people, if they persevere, they would have some out-of-body experience if they did persevere with the energy work.
See, now, while I've had a few experiences, I know during my experiences I was able to see color. I was able to hear. Now, feeling, no. Now, I guess my question would be, while astral projecting, are most people able to use their senses?
Very interesting question. It depends on one's level of lucidity during the projection. It varies. Sometimes the physical world is sometimes not very clear. It can be suffused with a sort of yellowish light for some reason. Every object has got a sort of yellowish light round about it. One maybe can't remember the experience. That's another point why it's important to note down the experience. I've been astonished and rereading some of my diary entries. I'd totally forgotten a literally wonderful astral projection, an experience where I maybe met some of my dead relatives, had a wonderful chat with them and so on. And I'd totally forgotten it years after. You'd think you would never forget a wonderful ecstatic experience, but in fact, the human mind being the way it is, one does forget unless it is noted down. And all the ancient practitioners and priests and whoever tried to practice astral projection, that is one thing that they insisted on. They kept a record of the experience, because one forgets so easily.
Yeah, that's something that so far, I don't know, maybe years from now I might forget details, but thankfully I did write it all down the next morning. I had to. When I came to, I think it was something like, I don't know, 3:20 or 3:40 in the morning, and I was way tired, but I was more emotional over the whole ordeal, and I wrote it down detail for detail. And I'm glad that I have, because, I have gone over it a couple times, and there's things that I have forgot. But for the most part, the actual experience and how it felt and how it affected me, I'd like to think I'd never forget that.
Well, ancient people in Scotland used to insist that when one woke up in the morning, one tried to waken up very quietly, peacefully, not sort of jump out of bed. This has been a tradition in Scotland and probably other places, where you woke up in a calm manner. In that respect, one tended to remember one's experiences of leaving the body during sleep more readily, if one sort of peacefully and gradually woke up and tried to remain calm. Which, let's face it, in this tense sort of world that we live in, that's not really a common phenomenon of waking up gradually taking time to wake up, taking time to assimilate the experiences one's had during his sleep time.
Sure, I know when I came to, the first thing I wanted to do after writing it all down was tell somebody about it.
Yeah, I remember all the odd discussion with teachers at my school. For example, I tried to discuss astral projection, but one met with a blank incomprehension. And thankfully nowadays it's more publicized. But I think this is a difficulty that a lot of people either are not interested or are scared to investigate further.
Sure. Well, Michael, I'd like to go back to the phone lines. We have Thomas from Texas. How are you, my friend? You're on Late Night in the Midlands.
I'm doing good. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes, sir.
I was just listening to your guest and what he was saying, and I don't know how to explain it myself, but I'm able to astral project, and I don't have to go into a meditative state to go there. I certainly didn't listen to adults or any discontent from other people telling me what was real or imagination. And so I simply started doing these things, and I can reach out and see things in real time. A lot of people call that remote viewing. I call it scanning, because I'm not remotely looking at something. I'm scanning it while it's occurring, so I'm able to see things that are a very long ways from me.
No,
that's very interesting.
It is.
Can you give us an example of a typical experience, please?
Well, sure. I had a woman on my show just a couple of months ago. She was in Washington State, and she was out on the Olympic Peninsula with a woman from Vancouver and they were doing Sasquatch research, and she called me on the phone and said that she thought they had activity, but she wasn't sure, so I just shifted gears in my head. That's what I call it, shifting gears. And I was able to make contact with a large Sasquatch male. In the communication with him, I didn't hear any words because he was not that forthcoming with his communication, but I looked at where she was at. So you can go back to my show, and Michael can tell you my name in the chat room and set you up on my show page. But her name is Beth, and I said, okay, Beth, I'm looking at where you're at, and the ground behind you goes up, and the ground in front of you goes down at a slow grade. And she goes, that's right. I said, that means you're standing on a hill, correct? She said, yes. I said, okay, behind you, I want to say about a quarter mile, is another hill. And she said, yeah, it's taller than the other hill. I said, yeah. And if you look at that hill over there, you'll be able to see 5 black dots, or should be able to. And the woman from Vancouver, because I was on speaker cell phone at that point, she goes, yeah, I can see 5 black dots over there, and one of them is bigger than the other. I said, okay, the one that's bigger than the rest is over to the right of that group, and it looks like he's sitting down, or he's not as tall, but he's much wider than the rest. Yeah, that's right. I said, okay, that's the large male. I said, hang on a second. I started speaking quietly, but still out loud, and I was saying, wave at him, wave at him. Well, the woman from Vancouver started saying, what? Now I can see one, it looks like it's jumping up and down, and I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, and if you could see him with binoculars, you'd see it's one of the kids waving his arms, jumping up and down, because I asked him to wave at you. So that's the kind of experience, and that's just one experience. I mean, I can't tell you how many experiences I've had. Going back 18 years ago, I had a dream about being struck by lightning that was almost identical to what happened in real life when I was actually struck by lightning.
Wow.
Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Your name?
The dream that I had was almost identical to what happened in real life when I was struck by lightning 2 weeks later.
That's really fascinating. Can I ask you? I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
My name is Thomas.
Thomas, that's really very interesting. How old were you when you had the first sort of experience like that?
My experiences really started in childhood, and I've had to go back and look at some of the things that I've experienced because when I was around the age of 5, honeybees and wasps would land on me, and I knew what they were doing. I was sweating because I was a kid outside playing, and they just wanted the salt in my sweat. And I looked at them as friends. Of course, it would scare my parents because they would see a stinging insect on me, and I didn't think anything about it. I didn't look at them as dangerous or anything that was going to hurt me because I looked at them as my friends. And I've always had a connection to life forms that are not human, like dogs and cats and birds. So that connection has always been there. That connection has been turned on since I came into this physical body.
So do you think it's... Sorry,
go ahead,
Thomas.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, how do you explain what I would class it as a natural ability to do all these things? Do you believe it's skills that you've attained in a previous life, or what?
Yeah, I think that probably when I came into a physical body, I made certain agreements or a contract, for lack of a better term, and some of these things were just turned on. Now, as time has gone on, they've increased and they've gone in different directions, but over the last 2.5 years, with my experiences with the Sasquatch people, with stray dogs, with wild animals like just squirrels and rabbits out in the woods, and things of that nature have gone beyond, well, you could call it paranormal, since the definition of paranormal is any experiences that are outside of the range of normal or unexplainable by science. But I've had a lot of experiences over the last 2.5 years, and sometimes I feel like my head is just a tornado and I can't figure out which direction it's all going in. So really, I'm just along for the ride.
So these things have happened mostly spontaneously and without you attending any spiritual discipline group or anything? It's just a natural experience as far as you're concerned, Thomas.
Let me tell you what I've tried to do, okay?
Okay.
I've failed at it. I really have. What I've tried to do most of my life is be a normal human being going by the initials FDH, which stands for fat, dumb, and happy. And it ain't happening.
That's a description.
So, when people out there say Sasquatch isn't real, and I'm like, really? You want to go out in the woods with me? I'll show you that they're real. I'm 6 feet 7 inches tall, or 1.98 meters for anybody who goes by the metric system, and I never thought that I would see another primate that could literally call me midget. But I have.
Very good.
Well, thank you so much for your sharing your stories, Thomas. That's definitely amazing stuff.
No, I just wanted to see what your guest's take was on that, because he's a man of experience. Okay. I see it in him.
Well, I think to a certain extent, I totally accept your view that you almost had a contract prior to this life. I think that can only explain your natural abilities in that sphere. And I wish you further progress, Thomas. That was very interesting, your description of your experience.
There's one more thing I'll relate to you, and then I'll get off so Michael can continue with the show. When I was born, and my parents have recited this story to many people throughout my life, I was 1 hour, I was born for 1 hour. I was out of the womb for an hour. And they wheeled me into my mother's hospital room in a bassinet, and I'm laying there in the crib, whatever you want to call it, I don't know the right term. And I was an hour in the world, and I lifted my head up and looked at my mother, and then I looked to the left, and then I rolled my head and looked to the right, and I looked back at her and smiled at her, and I laid my head back down, and I sighed. Now, that's unheard of. Most babies that are born don't have muscles in their neck that actually work.
No, that's true. You have to hold their heads.
That's right. So that's what I did when I was born. I was an hour out of the womb, and that's what I did. I picked up my head and looked around, and I sighed when I laid my head back down. So it's almost as if my soul was saying, I'm back again.
Back again. You certainly sounds as though you were an old soul, Thomas. Which reminds me, actually, of another situation as regards myself. I was born prematurely, excuse me, a month or almost 6 weeks, I think, premature. And of course, they do say that if you're a premature baby, often you have a 10 years old in the physical world. You're still sort of partly in the heavenly regions, as it were. And babies that are premature tend to be psychic when they get older. And you certainly, obviously, with that experience of being born, certainly feel that aspect of it. It's very interesting, Thomas.
Yeah, I just want to tell you, my life has been like this all my life. When I was a teenager in high school, I would get bored with everything, and I would just lay my head down and try to go to sleep. And I could see through the desktop and see my shoes, and I really thought it was my imagination until I started looking at the other teenagers' shoes that were sitting around me through my desktop. And when I'd raise my head up and open my eyes and see they were wearing the exact shoes that I saw, it was a little freaky, and I kept my mouth shut. I didn't say anything. And then at 18 years old, when I had a tornado touch down just 50 feet away from me, and it didn't take me up in the sky with it or take my truck out of the driveway, that's a little freaky. But I kept right on going. And the stopping point for me where everything really shifted gears is when I was 22 and I was literally struck by lightning. That was a real wake-up call right there for me.
Well, it sounds like you're pretty spiritually connected, and you're one of the fortunate ones who knows that the physical plane is not the end of the road.
But all I want to do is be fat, dumb, and happy like everybody else in the world, man.
That's a very good point.
All right, well, I'm going to go. Thanks for taking my call, Mike, and good show as always.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's true. I share that. That's all we all want. But so I've never considered myself psychic, but as I said, I have had dreams that have warned me of stuff, and I don't know if that's so much psychic as to being spiritually connected. Now his case obviously a lot different than mine. He's had a lot more, I guess you could say, psychic experiences. So, I mean, to be able to leave your body and actually be able to go somewhere and tell somebody on the spot what's around them and where they're standing, that's amazing.
Yes, I think that was really interesting what Thomas said. And also, people are very keen to get in touch with their dead relatives. And obviously, that's something that can be instigated by utilizing the techniques. For example, I would do the same energy work as I described earlier on, simple and effective for as long as you can do it. And also, try to remember your dead as they were, the way they walked, talked, and they moved about. Before, if you can remember all that and work on that before you sleep, there's every chance that you'll attract their attention in the heavenly worlds, and you can contact their dead relatives or friends.
Sure. Now, where do you stand with ghosts? What about, I know we're kind of getting off a little bit, but it's kind of on the same topic. Now, what about ghosts? Now, there's hauntings and these ghosts that stick around. What's the deal with them? Is that actually people who have died? Now, I know that them are some of the cases, but can some of them also be people who might have had an OBE, and I don't know, maybe their body deceased on them while they were out having fun. I don't know.
I think that's very possible. I think most people seem to describe it as astral shells. In other words, it's discarded astral bodies that are wandering about this ghostly shape. That reminds me, when I was about 3 years old, I was walking in Aberdeen, a brilliantly hot summer's day, down towards the beach in Aberdeen. And I looked across the road, and I was holding my mother's hand at the time. And I saw a lady, which I now know was dressed in Victorian clothes. And I said to my mother, "Why is that lady smiling at me?" And my mother said, "What lady?" And I pointed over the road. "That lady, she's smiling at me." And she attracted my attention because she was wearing clothes unlike any woman I'd seen at that young age. Long dress, parasol. She was carrying a parasol and a strange sort of hat. And my mother, who incidentally was very psychic, didn't see anything. And she said, "What lady? There's nobody there." And I said, "The lady is smiling at me." "There's nobody there, Michael." But there was. So, my first experience of seeing a ghost. So I think it's quite possible that it could be an entity or an astral shell or whatever.
Sure.
Have you had any experience like ghosts, Michael?
Absolutely, I have. Back in 2005, an apartment that I was renting in Rochester, New York had activity. There was a little girl and her father, who at first it was just, little things to let me know they were there. And then it got a little more hectic. It actually tried to take me with them one night. I woke up one morning and the blinds, to make a long story short, but the plastic blinds were off the window across the room, laying on my electric heater, melting. And ironically, they both died from a fire in that building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've had my experiences, and I've even had an experience with a demonic entity. I felt that she was demonic, and it was one of those where you're almost falling asleep, but I guess you could say astral projection. I ended up in a house that was built in 1801. It was in the town of Penn Yan, New York, and in this house, I was there one day, and I came into the doorway. I was in the kitchen. Never seen the rest of the house. You couldn't see any more of the house from the kitchen. You had to literally leave the kitchen to see it. Well, in this experience, I know it was real because I was able to describe the layout of the house, where everything was, and exactly how each room was set up to the person who lived in that house. And I described it to a T, and even the people in the house. So, but this old lady, just to get to it, when I went up the stairs, I was drawn upstairs for some reason. When I got upstairs, it felt really, really cold. And I was heading, there was a bathroom at the end of the hall, and when I got near that bathroom, I looked to my right, and I seen a bedroom. And in that bedroom stood my friend who was sleeping in the bed there. And this old lady was standing right next to her, and there was actually a rifle that was holding the window open. And I kept getting a bad feeling about the rifle. And when I went to take the rifle out from holding, those old windows, you had to put something in there to hold them up or they fell. So when I went to take this rifle out, this old lady said, "Stay away from her," and literally just super fast went through me, knocked the wind out of me, took me off my feet. And another ironic part about this is the next day when I told her this story, she was able to take the gun out of that closet and show me the exact gun that I seen. That I had never seen before. So, yeah, I've had some weird experiences.
Yeah, this is another thing that I recall. I was at a course held by the IAC, the International Academy of Consciousness, down there. There was me and another student there. And the chap leading the session said, "I'm going to try something different." And he closed the curtains of the room, and we did the energy work, raising the energy from our feet to our top of our head, back and forth, back and forth. expanding the energy again. No idea what was going to happen. And I had my eyes closed. He said, "Open your eyes." And I said, "My God," because all of a sudden I saw about a dozen different faces appearing in front of his face, flashing in and out at great speed. And I was totally surprised. There was some people looked Victorian, 18th century, sort of from that era. And he said, what did we experience? Well, the other student didn't experience hardly anything. And I said, well, I saw about a dozen faces superimpose themselves on your face. Who were they? He had no idea. But I mean, this is fascinating. Sometimes the unexpected experiences you have. For example, there was another experience I described in the book, where Wagner, who's the president of the IAC, he said to try something. There was about a dozen of us in the room, and we did the energy work, and then opened our eyes, and I saw his body disappear apart from his head and his shoulders.
Wow.
And I saw a flashing light on the left-hand side of his body. And he said, right, what did anyone experience? And he asked me first, and I said, well, your bottom part of your body totally disappeared. Those clouds of energy or whatever in their place. I just saw your head and shoulders, and I saw a flashing light appear from your left side. Well, he had deliberately done something to create that impression that his bottom of his body had disappeared, and he projected out of his body. This was a flashing light on the left-hand side. Again, total proof to me that things were happening, that, again, there was only one or two others had the same experience in the room. So we're all at different levels of development, I suppose. That would explain why we experience different things or don't experience things.
Sure, and again, it's really an individual, his belief. I mean, you get these skeptics, and again, like I said, it's an individual experience that makes you a believer. I've always believed that this stuff was possible before I experienced any of it, and maybe that opened things up, maybe opened some doors up for me to experience the stuff that I have. But I've always been a believer even before I've experienced it.
Well, that's great.
So now, could you tell me a little bit about tunnel projection after suicide? Now, that's something that you have in your book, and I'm curious as to what that is. What does that mean?
Well, some people, have you seen the film Contact with Jodie Foster, was it?
Mm-hmm.
She traveled to a different realm, traveling through what they call wormholes or tunnels. I mean, most people, when they have a near-death experience, for example, find themselves entering a tunnel configuration. In my view, it's the chakras that are probably traveling through as they leave the body. And the brighter the experience, the more developed the chakra is, the less beautiful the lower end of the chakra spectrum it would be. Anyway, most people, as they come back from a near-death experience, experience the feeling of going down a tunnel configuration. And as I indicated in the book, when my son died tragically, I found myself going in a particularly beautiful tunnel configuration. We've got a pattern over here called a paisley pattern in clothing or ties. It's a beautiful pattern. And in this tunnel there was red and gold. And there was a totally ecstatic feeling traveling at speed through it. And as I say, all I can think of is it must be entering a chakra as you leave the body, and it gives this tunnel experience.
Now, do you suppose that's the same as when somebody dies? You hear so many people have near-death experiences, and they say that they see this tunnel of light. Are we talking about the same tunnel?
I think so. I think, but then, of course, at the end of the tunnel, one meets one's view of what the after-death experience is like. You know, Christians would experience one thing, Buddhists would experience another thing. They're all similar techniques and experiences in a certain extent. And then one comes back, traveling back at great speed back to the body. But the tunnel vision seems to be quite a common phenomenon with most people who project at death or hopefully when they're very much alive. I don't know if have you had a tunnel projection, Michael?
No, I can't say that I recall that. Although, here we go again. I did experience, I don't know if you'd call it a near-death experience, but I had a couple times that I pretty much came close to drowning, and I got to the point where, I don't know if anybody's ever been in that situation where they were in the process of drowning. Before you ever suck water down into your lungs, your lungs know enough to stop breathing. They actually take very short breaths so that they don't get the water in them. And I got to that point, and that cuts oxygen off from the brain, and you eventually just come to grips with it and give up. And I was in that situation. Now, I didn't see tunnels of light or anything like that. I guess I didn't actually die, but I was close to death. And so, and I got to say, when it came to that point where I knew that it was going to happen and there was nothing I could do about it, I came to a very peaceful sense of mind. I mean, I didn't struggle. It was just, this is it. There's nothing you can do about it. And it was just giving up. And it was peaceful, though. It wasn't scary, strange.
That's very interesting. Most people who have had a horrible experience to the observer of dying, maybe getting hung or electrocuted or drowning, apparently they come back to life. Describe it as actually quite a peaceful situation was their experience, which is surprising. And it's though the nature of the spiritual worlds make sure that everybody's death is basically internally peaceful, despite appearances to the contrary by the observer looking at the person dying. It actually can be quite a peaceful sensation throughout.
Sure. Now, there was another experience that, not that I had, but one I know of. There's a documentary that I was watching one night, and doctors were pretty much coming on talking about what they know about death. And one story in particular that came up that I found fascinating, there was an older gentleman who was getting an open heart surgery done. And during this open heart surgery, he actually left his body and levitated above the operating room, watching this go on. And how he knew, he described to the doctors the next day, the one doctor who's doing the surgery, he would tend to point to things with his elbow. So it looked like he was doing like a chicken dance kind of thing. And I guess while he was out of his body, he was thinking, what the hell is this guy doing? Why is he making like a chicken over him? Well, it turned out that when he brought this up to the nurses in the hospital, they laughed and says, this guy had to have experienced being out of his body, because for him to see this, because this doctor, they said that he's well known for doing that, for pointing to things with arms. That's what he was doing. And he described exactly what this doctor was doing. He described some of the conversations they were having while he was out being having this surgical procedure done, and even described what type of shoes this doctor was wearing. And he wouldn't have known, because he didn't actually see the doctor in his full surgical getup until he was already out. So that was amazing to me, that he was able to see this, and he confirmed it by saying what this doctor was doing. And he shouldn't have known about this. He was supposed to be out.
Yeah, apparently over in Britain there's a doctor or some organisation to do with hospitals. They're actually placing targets. I think it's probably photographs puffed up or pictures at a point in the room above near the ceiling. And people that are incapacitated after operations, they are going to be asked if they left their body and perceived anything above their physical body lying in the bed. So they are actually testing that hypothesis that you mentioned in British hospitals just now, apparently. I haven't heard any success results yet, but that'll maybe happen in the near future.
Well, I've had one surgery in my life, and they put me out for it. It was a simple procedure on my elbow, and, I don't remember anything. I just remember talking and then being out of it and waking back up, and that was it. I just didn't remember anything, so if it did happen, I don't remember it. That's for sure.
Of course, to say that that's part of the thing about an anesthetic, it forces the etheric body, which is the body of feeling, out of the physical body, therefore making it a painless, unconscious experience for the patient. But of course, as you know, sometimes very rare cases, the anesthetic doesn't work, or there's been a mistake, and the person remains conscious during the operation, which is a painful thing to experience.
Oh, that's horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. So, now, what exactly is occult experiences? I think you touched on that a little bit earlier, but that's actually the last question that I really have is what exactly does that mean?
It means a hidden knowledge. And we were discussing earlier on, Michael, the fact that they kept it a secret in the past. Maybe it was not casting pearls before swine more than an aspect of, if you keep something secret to yourself, that produces a tension within you that will maybe instigate the phenomenon. So you be bursting to tell somebody about this wonderful out-of-body experience, dying to tell someone, but if you don't tell them, you're creating a tension into you, your mind is getting positively boosted with the thoughts of the phenomenon. And in fact, it might happen a bit easier if you keep it secret. So that's maybe the reason that the ancient people kept their knowledge private about occult arts. Of course, you've always got religious bias. I mean, certain fundamental Christians wouldn't like the thought of astral projecting, and you get a lot of people in the literature saying that astral projection is a low art.
Yeah, there's a lot of churches and religions that don't want to believe this kind of thing, and I was raised Catholic, but I don't practice it. I've said it a million times here that God comes to my house and He's welcome any time, and I have different beliefs. I can't go by what they say. I mean, when it comes down to it, I think who are they to tell us? I mean, they don't really know for sure what's going on, and when you've experienced things like you and I have, and Thomas has, and our other callers, it just tells me that I don't care what they say, it's true. It does happen. It is possible.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you make. I mean, I was just thinking of Susan Blackmore, who I mentioned in the book. She was a student, and I think she smoked cannabis as a student, and had a tremendously involved out-of-body experience. And she dedicated her life shortly after that, to do a PhD, a doctorate, and prove that the fact that psychic events happened. Sad to say, she didn't get the proof, and she's now very skeptical about the whole experience. So again, it's all down to one's own experience. Like you are convinced that you left your body. I'm totally convinced I left my body in a real thing. It was a real experience. But I'm still puzzled as to why it can't be proven scientifically. This has really puzzled me for years. I can't prove it as of yet, despite having pretty wonderful hundreds of projections, various descriptions. I can't prove it to the satisfaction of the scientific community or peripheral practitioners like James Randi, who are offering $1 million for one simple proof. So it's a fascinating concept as to why spiritual talents or skills can't be proven scientifically.
You know, and that's one of the frustrating things for me is that with a lot of scientists, if they can't measure it, it don't exist, and that's just not true. There are so many things that exist that we can't measure or can't see. Just because you can see it, don't mean it's not there. I mean, that goes for people who believe in God. I mean, you can't see him, but he's there, right? So.
Yeah.
So. Absolutely, and I'll go back one more time and say, can you imagine, like any good technology, this as well? I think that if somebody could master this, it could be used for good and it could be used for evil.
That's right. You mentioned earlier on I think it was in America and Britain as well, probably training operatives to spy in foreign countries and government buildings in Moscow, etc. Of course, the Russians tried the same thing, I think, at one time. They trained up armed personnel to spy. I have no idea the success rates, whether they did in fact succeed in getting into government departments of a foreign country and spying basically via the astral body. I don't know if they had any tangible success in it.
Well, I haven't had any of these gentlemen on my show yet, but there are a couple people in mind, and I can't think of their names right offhand, who said that they were a part of those projects with the government, and that they were successful for the most part.
As far as I'm concerned, I could recommend highly enough Joe McMonigle. I think he was a very good speaker, Michael.
Oh, I'll have to look that one up, definitely.
McMonigle, I think is his surname. And he was a practitioner in the armed forces of America to do that. But again, his prophecies did turn out to be accurate. It's fascinating, but he was a very good speaker.
It is very fascinating. And listen, we're just about out of time, but I want to let you get out whatever it is you want to get out before we call it a night. And I also want to let you know that I'm going to get your links up on my past guest page on the website. And I would love to get you back. We're hitting WOIC 12:30 a.m. in Columbia, South Carolina in January. And I'd love to get you back as a guest, if not in January, definitely in February. And I'll have a toll-free number, so you won't even have to use Skype if you don't want to, and we can get into this further. This is a fascinating topic, and one that I think a lot of people who might not take interest in it, if they are listening tonight, they just might, because it is fascinating, and it is real.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. I've really enjoyed the couple of hours and speaking to your guests as well, and I think we've had a real discussion. And I would encourage anybody who happens to be listening to get a hold of literature. I've got about 300 books in out-of-body experiences, so there's plenty in the market. And I would really encourage people to try and practice an out-of-body experience, because that, more than any other psychic experience, will prove to you personally, individually, that you are a spiritual entity, and there's more to life than meets the eye. To those that are worried about dying, if you have an out-of-body experience, that will cease your fear to a great extent. and it'll also give you an impetus to study more spiritually beneficial things, maybe, and as I say, basically get rid of the fear of death. And I hope that your listeners will maybe take that wee bit of advice and read up. And there's plenty of internet sites as well, out-of-body experiences. And I would encourage people to try to take an interest and try to practice the simple techniques if they could as well. Because it's basically a simple process. It just needs a wee bit of hard work and application. And you'll probably very soon have some experience of an out-of-body phenomenon.
Yeah, I can honestly say that if dying is anything like an out-of-body experience, then it's really a breeze. I guess the hardest part will be maybe the suffering till you die, if you go out that way. But if it's anything like an out-of-body experience, then it's pretty pleasant, to say the least.
An eerie, exquisite eeriness, as I described it earlier on. It's a wonderful experience, and the feeling content is pretty exceptional and totally novel and different from anything you'll experience in life, in human life. So I've been very pleasant talking to you, Michael, and I hope to come back and talk to you again.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And can you really quick before you go tell everybody where they can get your book again?
You can get it from any supplier, but the Amazon con, it's Astral Projections by Michael Ross, and it's fairly cheap, but it's worthwhile. And I enjoyed writing it, and I wrote it purely to help people try to take an interest in the out-of-body phenomenon. That describe my experiences. And by the way, I happen to have Parkinson's disease, so any profits in the book go to the Parkinson's Disease Society in the UK and the International Academy of Consciousness. So it's not filling my pockets with cash, but I'm giving it to these two charitable concerns. So I would really appreciate if people could consider purchasing the book Astral Projections by Michael Ross.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for being a guest tonight. It has been a fascinating 2 hours, and I really enjoyed, and I'm honored having you on the show tonight.
I'm honored to be with you as well, Michael. Thank you very much, and goodbye just now.
Okay, you have a good night, or a good morning for you. And again, thank you for joining us.
Okay, bye, Michael.
Okay, bye-bye now. All right, everybody. Michael Ross. The book is Astral Projections. If you have any...
I mean, I foolishly didn't start keeping a record of my astral projections until about 10, 12 years ago, and I filled about 5 huge diaries of experiences of astral projection. And I think this is another thing that people should maybe attempt to do: keep a dream diary or an astral projection diary, and that helps produce the phenomenon as time goes on. It requires a great deal of discipline and perseverance to experience the phenomenon, and I think that's the only way. Keeping a physical record in a diary helps the experience occur, I think.
It does, and it helps you recall the incident. You know, like if I have a dream that has any bearing to it, that I feel has any bearing to it, when I wake up, I don't care how tired I am, I write it down. Because I like to keep notes of this stuff and, do my own kind of, I guess, experiment. Sometimes you get these dreams and, days later, something similar will happen and, it all makes sense. And my third out-of-body was actually something that I'll never forget. I actually, in this particular one, I was an adult. This was back in 2004. And I actually spent some time with my mother, who had passed away in 2001. And the only reason I know that I didn't imagine this, and that it wasn't a dream, and that it wasn't out-of-body experience is because everything she told me came true in the following couple of weeks. So,
excellent.
Now, you had something similar, correct, with your son?
Yes, I did, and he died tragically.
I'm sorry.
And about 12 years ago. And naturally, one was extremely distressed at that incident sort of happening. But a few days after, I had a lucid dream, which is a dream where you're aware you're dreaming. It wasn't quite an astral projection, fully blown astral projection, where I met him, and he looked pretty hollow, empty, shocked. There are a couple of experiences of that. But then one night I found myself traveling a particularly beautiful tunnel configuration, and it was a sort of intricate pattern of red and gold colors, brilliant colors, and it was an ecstatic feeling traveling in this tunnel. And I've never had the experience prior to that of guides. I tended to be a bit skeptical about people who keep talking about guides. And I perceived sort of a fair-haired, black-cloaked entity following me at great speed. And I immediately decided I would go to Bury. And I shot off at a different direction. I had no idea where I was going. And I eventually found myself in a room with children who had different nationalities. I was very disappointed I didn't see my son. And I said, "Where's Murray?" And the children giggled and
life, and not one of them was controlled. It just happened.
Yeah.
So, and I've always wondered, some people are able to make this happen. And I guess we'll get into it as we go along, as if somebody wanted to do that, how they would go about doing it.
Well, when I had my first projection, I was delighted. I thought, well, that proves to me at least that there is such a thing as an entity, as a soul in the physical body. And I thought, now how do I prove this to other people who haven't had the experience? So I thought I would write to the Institute of Psychophysical Research in Oxford, headed the Celia Green that you mentioned earlier on, suggested that she set up a 5-digit target, and I would try to travel by the astral body down to Oxford and read the figure, the 5-digit figure. I think I must have read an article by Charles Tarp, who's a very famous parapsychologist in America, very nice individual. He's written a lot of books about the paranormal. And I think he was the first one to do that sort of experiment of a 5-digit number. Anyway, so the Oxford group of people set up a target, and I would try to travel down there and pick up a target number and prove that there was such a thing as a soul. Unfortunately, over 2 years, I didn't achieve it once. And like yourself, most of the occasions of astral projection or out-of-body experience were spontaneous. I tried to train myself to, before sleep, meditation, all sorts of energy work and various techniques I picked up in various books. But unfortunately, I never proven it. And I tend to... I know that as far as I'm concerned, there is such a thing as a soul in an astral body. The thing that puzzles me is there's been absolutely no proof whatsoever ever provided. I'm surprised Sylvan Muldoon and Hereward Carrington, who was a parapsychologist investigating Sylvan Muldoon's out-of-body experiences, I'm surprised they didn't set up a target to try to achieve. Robert Monroe, who's America's probably most famous projector, he did a similar test start. But again, no matter how proficient he was, he couldn't achieve the target number at the university that he attempted it. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no psychical event has ever been proven satisfactorily to science, which is a big puzzle to me as to why it's so difficult to achieve that aim in the end.
You know, I really think that it's an individual thing. I think, you know, a lot of people go on not believing in this stuff and thinking it's not possible until it happens to them. And I've been fortunate enough to experience a lot of the stuff I talk about. So, you know, I'm a big believer in it. I know that there's a soul. I know that, you know, when we die, that's not it. There's more to it.
Yeah. Well, I share your point of view as regards that. I'm still puzzled as to why it's so difficult to get a physical target in the physical world.
Buddy, please welcome my guest tonight, Michael Ross. Good evening, Michael.
Hello, Michael. Very pleasant to be with you. Can you hear me okay?
I'm getting a bit of an echo. I don't know if maybe, do you, by chance, well, maybe you don't have the show on behind you because I'm not hearing myself. But, yeah, I'm getting a little bit of an echo. So I don't.
We got a hell of a schedule coming up on WOIC, so don't miss it. And I made it easy for you on the website at www.
Okay, yeah. See, I heard the show in the background. I think we're all right now, though. So tell, yeah, much better.
That's the OIC logo. You could just click that logo.
Okay. See, I'm getting the show in the background. Do you have it on by chance?
Probably.
Perhaps I do. I'm not sure how to
my mugshot on that page, and you'll click on that, and that'll take you to listen live. There's also a link on the WIC website.
Okay, then what you might have to do is possibly close out the show if you have it up on your computers. Maybe either.
So and we'll keep you updated more and more on it as we get closer to that opening day. I'm excited. I'm looking so forward to it. It ought to be quite fun. But really,
I'll try and cut it out, Michael.
Okay. Well, Michael, you might want to you either hit the pause on the player itself, or you can actually close that right out, and it'll be in the archives, so you'll be able to.
I'm Kennedy, and we're going to talk about some of the things that are happening now.
Okay, so you with us? Michael Ross, are you with us? Okay, hold on, everybody.
Cover just one thing. We don't cover just a couple things.
Well, I hung up, Michael.
No, folks, we really do.
Okay, yeah, I can still hear it. You're gonna have to either pause it or close out the Blog Talk Radio.
Here I am. Yes, folks, we've made some friends along the way in high places, but we've also made a few enemies. And for them, all I can say is keep listening.
Oh.
Yeah, Bill Dean from Maryland is on Late Night in the Midlands. Hello, and welcome back to Late Night in the Midlands, Bill.
Hi, Brother Michael. Thank you for having me back. Great to be on with you to share a couple minutes with you here.
Michael, are you? Do you need assistance on?
Yes, I do. I'm not computer literate, Michael. I'm afraid I don't know what I'm doing.
Show, and I think you've done
Okay,
great.
well, if you're up on the show on the Blog Talk Radio page, what you'll want to do is look for the player there, and you might want to pause that or actually close out the Blog Talk Radio end of things and just go with the Skype for right now.
This all needs to be done.
Cut it out.
It's popular now, but I think it's going to be more popular as time goes by.
There could even be a volume switch on that Blog Talk player that you can actually throw all the way down. So either or.
On the show tonight,
Late night in the Midlands. We cover everything. Late night in the Midlands is kicking off the new year on WOIC 12:30 a.m. That's right, it's a go, my friends. On January 3rd, 2011, we will broadcast for the first time live on WOIC 12:30 a.m. to kick off 2011 and the new home of...
Are you there, Michael?
Yes, sir, I am.
That's it now, I think.
Okay. Sounds like you figured it out.
Sorry about that. I'm not very computer literate. But
oh, that's quite all right. That's quite all right. It gave me a few moments to get better prepared here, so that's okay. It happened. So the show will be in the archive. So if you want to go back and listen to it or even download it, you're more than able to do that. So thank you for being a guest here tonight on Late Night in the Midlands. I do appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure to be speaking to an American radio host. I'm very fond of America and your freedom to discuss all these intricate things like astral projection, out-of-body experiences. Great stuff.
Yeah, at least for now we're free to discuss this stuff. I sometimes wonder the way things are going.
I understand your point there.
Yeah, so why don't we start out and talk a little bit about the book? What got you interested in the astral projections and really turned you into writing this book?
Well, when I was 17, I had my first astral projection, and it was thanks to reading Sylvan Muldoon's classic, The Projection of the Astral Body. And I was very open-minded as to whether there was such a thing as out-of-the-body experiences. And I woke up one morning and finding myself shooting out of my body, looking down in my sleeping form in the bed. And I panicked. I think this is quite a common feature of people's first experience of an astral projection. And I said, get back, and I shot back into my body. But it was an ecstatic experience in all senses of the word. And I began to investigate the phenomenon, read as much as I could about it, tried to train myself to achieve more astral projections, and that's the reason that I eventually, 30, 40 years later, wrote a book about it.
Nice. So, okay, so let's get into this a little bit. And, I got some questions about astral projection. Now, myself, I guess my first question is, now, when we talk about astral projection, we're also talking about out-of-body experiences. Now, somebody had once told me they're not exactly the same, so I'll ask you, they're pretty similar, aren't they?
Well, Sylvan Muldoon, for example, that great pioneer of astral projection, he had out-of-body experiences only within the physical plane or the physical world. He never had an experience where he entered the astral plane. I suppose he was more of an out-of-body exponent in the physical world, whereas most people tend to experience visits to the astral plane as well. And fortunate people like myself have experienced both types of projection. So I think that would be the indication as to the difference between them. You're entering, if you use the term astral projection, you're entering the astral plane. If you use out-of-body experience, it generally means you're having an out-of-body in the physical world.
Okay, see, now I've had a few in my life.
To prove that, in fact, the soul has left the body and perceived a target, it's a mystery to me as to why it should be so difficult to prove. I don't see why we who have experienced that phenomenon cannot do it.
Oh, okay. Now, there's been psychic research on this phenomenon, correct? I mean, did they ever get anywhere with this type of research?
No, anybody has ever tried to produce an out-of-body experience and proven it has failed, sadly, miserably. In fact, Robert Monroe, who I have great admiration for, the late Robert Monroe, when he was doing the experiment with Charles Dart, I think it was in a hospital area or somewhere like that, and he did project in one of the evenings that he was trying this experiment, but he couldn't go to the target for some reason, the target number of 5 digits, but he perceived a nurse talking to her husband round a corner, which he wouldn't have perceived from the bed that he was lying on. And in fact, that was true. He did have a semi sort of proof, but it wasn't the proof it was expected, e.g. the 5-digit number.
Okay. Now, I know that access to astral plane was once a well-guarded secret in ancient Egyptian culture. It was made available only to the powerful elite through elaborate rituals. So they were aware of this type of thing being a reality, and they tried to keep it out of the wrong hands.
Yes. I wonder why, though.
Yeah.
Out of the wrong hands, as you put it. I mean, I can understand why they keep it a secret. I mean, I didn't publicize this or anything. I didn't really broadcast the fact. In fact, when I wrote the book, a lot of people that I knew were very surprised that I had had this experience. I think, in a sense, if you start blathering or talking too much about a phenomenon like this, you tend to lose the ability to experience it for some, again, an unknown reason. I think if you keep it private and don't mention it, it sort of creates a tension within you. It'll help produce the phenomenon.
You know, what's weird with mine is when I had 2 of them were as a child, and I remember getting up out of bed, and it seemed like I was floating, and I looked back and I could see myself laying there, and then it was almost like being a ghost. I mean, I couldn't leave the room. I don't know if it was because I was a child and maybe there's some kind of boundaries when you're that little, but you know, and I remember my parents' room was in the next room over, and if I made noise, my dad was quick to come in there. Well, I made all the noise I could trying to get someone's attention, and nobody budged. I even tried waking my brother up, who was in the same room. And, I mean, I got a nudge out of him, but he didn't wake up to talk to me, and it was just really strange. And I don't...
How old were you at this time?
Oh, I had to be about 10 years old when this happened.
That's very good if you remember that. I mean, as I say, I have no recollection of any out-of-body experience before the age of 17. I think it's pretty good that you had experiences and remember it. Incidentally, that brings up another point.